All right, it's the Black Mic Podcast. I'm your host, Ayabulela Manzimugbaye Fumeno Mfane, and we are back with yet another amazing episode. And today, Niazge, Aslali Samba Soto, we are never alone. And today we have the amazing, he's a businessman. This is Delmas' very own businessman, a CEO of a mining company. He utandi art, he loves bikes, he's an activist, a philanthropist, an overall family man. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Motau.
Sir. Sure.
How are you?
No, I'm good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Would you say I did justice to your intro?
Yeah, you did justice.
It's not convincing.
No, you did justice. And I think I'm just happy that because I think a lot of confusion has always been because I have been an activist.
Okay.
And, you've got an activist, but also I was politically active.
All right.
And there's always a confusion, especially in a small town like this one.
Yeah.
When people look at you, they still think, hey, this one is still active in politics. I think that's one of the most confusions that are there. But I think you did justice. We're business people. Right. But Sabantwana ba like high, school like
exactly.
Yeah. But we are humble, Mfanagiti, to be in your podcast.
We're going to get into that, politics, and I'm glad that you just was set up away. It's a trap.
Much.
So there's always a fine line whenever you're trying to introduce someone, right?
Yeah.
They call it an interview question, like a job interview. Tell us more about yourself. Who is Thabo Motau?
Thabo is, I'm born and raised here in Delmas.
Yes, sir.
I was born exactly about 10 kilometers where we are sitting in a farm there. I think it was owned by K. Smith. Wow. When you're actually in N12, just across the trees there, when you see there's a trees across the freeway, that's where I was actually born. Right?
Really?
I was raised here, and then I went to schools here. Primary, I went to, the schools in the farms, and then came back. I went to the Bazani, to Mezweni Bazani, then later on, Papamani, and I matriculated here, and then I went to study a bit in UJ.
Okay.
And, when Vista was ending, I studied a bit there. But cut the long story short, I'm a master's dropout. I don't know if that is the right thing to say, Dennis.
Right.
But I studied up to an honors level, and then
yes, sir.
and then I came back like higher. I was a bit unemployed, and obviously being active in the student movement, and I began becoming active. And I think from there I was active for quite some time, and I had a youth development center.
Really?
Yeah, before I could be employed. Yeah, I had a youth development center. What was it called? Great Achievers. We had Great Achievers Youth Development Center.
Yeah.
Yes.
How do you go from not being employed, being unemployed, and all of that, and then to being in a youth development?
So. I think from being unemployed, coming from university, and obviously you're sitting here, and I think even in our society, when people understand with mangabe kunama issues, people expect you to be the one who is raising issues, and people will be coming to you. And I guess out of that, I then began to inquire and then begin to represent people. When you are raising issues, then you then beginning to be the spokesperson. And then I think Amakrot Malokshini would identify you and say, but there's a leader in you, And then I think from there on, I got employed. I think I was a youth manager. And then I worked in the province, and then I had a small stint in government. I only worked for like 3 years in government, but different,
but I'm sure the impact was quite significant, wasn't
it? I wouldn't.
He's humble. He's trying to be humble, but all right.
I think one of the greatest highlights, I think, of being a youth manager.
Yes, sir.
When I was at, and I always mention this because when I was at UJ, the first year I got there, I was the only person in the class and in that faculty who comes from my hometown.
Wow.
And that for me was a problem. And every time we still used to apply with forms. So I would take empty type packs at the library at Vista here in Davidton. Then I would go on your hike N12, but with boxes of type packs. So I would carry 2 because then I was heavy. You know, she's still my friend now. She's more like a sister.
Shout outs to Lindy, by the way.
Yeah. So Lindy would help me to carry. Then this is new hike, and then I would hike these and forms, and then I would begin to distribute them. You know, because these are application forms for Abantuana to go and study. But I then realized and said, you know what? Now when I was a youth, I mean, that's what I've been doing, helping people to apply and so forth and so forth. When I was a youth manager, I then said, you know, one of the things that are important that we must do, we must build ourselves an FET. And that was a serious, because when I get to the municipality, they had that thing, I can't even recall KPIs and KPAs and all that. And that FET thing was not there. So it is something that we are shocking people and saying, we've got to have an FET. And the question was where the money would come from and all those things. And I then wrote to, and shout out, how are you saying it? Shout out.
Yes, shout out.
Shout out to mine of Universal Coal.
All right.
So what happened was I then wrote to them to say, we want to build an FET. We don't know what the costs are.
So this is way back.
This is exactly in 2012.
Okay.
In 2011, to be precise. 2011, I think around October. We then write to them from the office, and then they respond. They say, well, it was not within their budget, but their mining operation, they committed R1 million.
Wow.
Mind you, being unemployed, just got into the office, then you get a commitment of R1 million. Hey? Now, coming back R1 million, hey, now this thing is doable. Then Exaro was approached. There was another, I think, a committee that was there, but we then approached Exaro, and Exaro, I think, committed about R5 million. So by, I think, somewhere in Feb of 2012, somewhere, I think, in 2013, well, the process would then run, but there was now a commitment of about R6 million. I then had an opportunity to go and work in the province, which then the project was now to begin in the stages. So there was a crash. I don't know what you call a crash in English, but there was a crash, Bayana, which had to be moved. The building was identified. And I can tell you the rest of what happened with the FET. We don't have an FET today because of our own doing. And I believe partly because of corruption more than anything else. Yeah, and I'm not one to point fingers. And I believe all of us have contributed to where the town is today. I had left an office where there was a commitment of 6 million. And I think over 8 million rand was spent in turning what was an old cash-built building into what was to become an FET. Mind you, when we left, we had said there must be a committee which comprised of Nkangala FET, the municipality, and everybody else. But when they continued, deliberately, I think they left the other stakeholders, and they obviously appointed local contractors. There's nothing wrong with that. I believe they subcontracted the work without pointing fingers. But the reality of the matter is that 8 million rand was spent. You then have today a building that is substandard, which we have now, and I can tell you a story how we came back because it was now dilapidated. But to cut the long story short, that building was supposed to be an FET. There's a guy called Mkhosini of Paul Rock.
All right.
And somewhere in your podcast, before you go, get Mkhosini to send you, and I will go to my files and send you the actual building that was designed by, is it Mkhosini, right? And Sabelo, when they were still working together. I've got a building of the FET that we said we wanted to build when we left. And then we obviously ended up with not an FET. A building was left, dilapidated, and so forth and so forth. But which is something I'm excited about. I think as we go along, you'll get to see that young people are taking that up. And I believe that we want to have. But the motivation to have an FET began from there. And it was something people that thought it's an impossible thing to do. And we went to raise money to that. Yeah, so the youth manager days, I think that's one highlight that I would say I did. And then I became a director in a government department. But I think thanks to Babu Skosana, who was an MEC then, who took me along. You know, it's not easy to be a director. You write that competency test. That competency assessment is very difficult. But you know, becoming a director at age 28.
Wow.
Becoming a director at age 28. And taking a salary, well, I might not go to numbers, but it was, it was something. It was something. No, it changed. Yeah, no, it could change. I think in those days you could there were polos, those ones. You
Yeah.
could buy it cash. You
It's
could
still
buy
there.
months
Yeah. There's something about polo.
Yeah, no, you could
It
buy,
is
you could buy a
generational.
Tez. Yeah, I remember. I think
Yeah.
I could easily buy a Tez cash with my, with my
Yeah.
first salary when I
Yeah.
became a director.
So a Tez is a polo of now. Then. You know?
Yeah, but ama-Tez no ngibonga ko ngalendlela amapolo adinge ngayo. Man, hey, amapolo man. Hey. And you have Dennis out time drive polo.
Ne.
Yeah.
So wait, before Spigala, right? You were born at Delmas and grew up lab.
Yeah.
So ekhuleni kwakho, was it always has it always been there? Lento le ukuthi, okay, I think man, I wanna fight for the betterment of my people.
So I can tell you, it is something that you learn over time.
Okay.
And many people like to lie and say, I have always been like this, fighting for the
yeah,
community.
yeah.
It's not true. At least in my case. So, I mean, growing up, yes, I've been an activist. And if somebody says, yeah, maybe I've always had this thing of wanting to fight for people, maybe it would have been there.
Mm-hmm.
But I think the point where I understood that I must now begin to fight selflessly, probably during my years when I was elected to be the president. I was supposed to be the president of the LRC, but I didn't become. I had many votes at Papa Man, yes. And if I look back now, I wanted to lead student movement, not necessarily because I had the goodness of the best of interest of people necessarily.
All right.
And this is now self-reflection going back. I actually, because I was an unruly, I thought I could fight for the rights of students, but also to my benefit,
And
to the benefit of the unrulies like myself.
wow, and challenging authority.
Challenging authority,
Okay.
right? So somebody can say, I've always been an activist, but the motivation was that it is different than what I do now. And then let me tell you where I think I began to understand and began to understand the component, selflessness element. So when you come back from university, you come back, you are now unemployed with a degree, and later you would have an honors degree and you remain unemployed. And what does the education system do? Let's go there for a minute, my brother.
All right.
The education system in this country, at least, it is so individualistic in a sense that it teaches us, when you come back from university, number one, when you enter the streets, everybody who has gone there, whether they can accept or not, it's something else. But when you come back, you begin to see yourself better
True.
than the other people.
Yeah.
In fact, you sometimes go to the extent when somebody reasons, you think I can reason better with this one.
But now, would you say that is affected by you moving outside of the place that you grew up in? Now you're exposed to buildings,
Yes.
now a different lifestyle.
Yes.
So that can have a psychological impact on you.
That has a psychological impact on you. But the very fact of education itself says to you, ngoba ngihambile ngayofunda, ngiyobuya ngibe ngcono, mangiceda ukuba ngcono, I'm going to be employed, I'm going to live a better life. So my family ordinarily would be better. You know, there is that element.
To it, yes.
So the element of selflessness when you come back from university, we're not taught that when you come back you must have community service and all that. It's not found anywhere. It's not even compulsory. Now, coming back in my case, honestly, when I come back, I'm now unemployed. I now begin to become an activist. I then join NGOs. And then, and I've always been doing community work. But now, I joined the ANC Youth League.
All
And
right.
I signed a form. For the record, I'm now not belonging to any political party.
All right.
I'm an activist in my own right, but I resigned from all political activism.
We are coming into that.
Yes, but now, so I joined the ANC Youth League. There's a form that says, I solemnly declare that I will abide by the aims and so forth and so forth. And you swear, it's an oath where you swear.
Okay.
But in the end, it says, I think you will contribute, selflessly.
This is
But
a membership form.
This is a membership form. But when I'm joining, why did I join? I was unemployed. Amongst other things, I thought, joining this youth league thing, coming back from now student politics, it's actually an opportunity. There are many people today who join politics with the hope of getting employment. And I can tell you, my rejoining of politics coming home, amongst other things, priority was that, but now when you join this organization, You then get to attend a political school. You are then exposed to umkhabulo. You then get to be taught what a cadre and ordinarily get reminded how should we behave as Africans and so forth and so forth. So for me, beginning to work selflessly for the community and whatnot, the Litsima programs and so forth and so forth, the pioneers that I would then begin to have. I think I was more activated when I now began to join NGOs, which they must be given credit to, Great Achievers and so forth and so forth, working with Thabo Mahamba, the Ndumbeni and the others.
Shout out. Yeah.
You know, Abu Mahamba. I mean, those are the guys that we
Yes.
worked with. And working with these guys, this thing then begin to grow in you to say, you know what, I've got to work for this community selflessly. And then you begin to appreciate, you know, that. And I think that then begins to grow in you. But in the initial, it's not something that I would never, if you have asked me when I was younger, if I was going to end up here, you know. But I then think then it grows from you, you know, because you are getting exposed to the literature that you read, but also the situation of your people. And I guess when people see you as a light, you know, when people come to you for help and whatnot, eventually you give yourself in. And I think I'm now overdoing it.
So you are saying being diplomatic can be taught.
Yes, it can be taught.
Please
be
elaborate
diplomatic.
on that. Yes, because you mentioned something like going to a political school now. I know it is not a physical building, but
so being diplomatic can be taught in a sense that look, there's a lot of influences now in society, right? And how we got democracy in the country has somehow an effect to how we conduct ourselves today as a people. And maybe we can elaborate on another day on that subject. Now, the radicalism, that's why today when people are unhappy, they burn tires, when there is no need. It was a form of protest in those particular days against an apartheid government and so forth and so forth. And is there still a need to burn the same infrastructure? Not. But how people today identify with activism is seen as radicalness, an unguided radicalism, right? So, yes, I think it is possible that you can be taught, because over time you would then be reminded. You are taught, but you're actually reminded that as a child, as you are born of a family and you are raised according to a certain set of principles. I can tell you can go to all the political schools, whether it's the EFF, whether it's the ANC, and all of them, all these political parties. I believe that they would teach you on how to become a better leader who is selfless but who is also responsible. I understand some of them use radicalism today as you know. So to be humble, I think you can be taught, you know, and those are the kind of teachings that you get. But you also get the teachings of those that came before you, and sometimes you have an opportunity of those who led before you, you know. So for me, I think yes, we can all be taught. That's why all in our youth days we become extra radical, but as we grow we change. Do we all need to go to political schools? No, because we learn through in society that actually as we grow, we become more responsible citizens, because there are those people that are looking up to us. So you can imagine if I'm still the Thabo of 2012, who was wearing an all-star, who was prepared to toy and block the roads. I'm not sitting here and saying these things are wrong because I didn't do them, you know, or I didn't participate in them, or I didn't advocate for them. But because I partook, and it can't continue. At least you have got an opportunity to learn from me
and do better.
You know?
All right. So now, going through the ranks, right, of being in the political space, I'll say that without mentioning any party.
Yeah.
So you are going up, and then you choose to resign.
Yes.
Right. And then what brought you to that decision?
My brother, the decision to resign from the movement that has taught you so much, I would, and many of us, and not only the movement which I belonged to, but all the activists that took to fight the crime against humanity, the apartheid system, all the people who took up to fight that system, I think we are all sitting here because of their contribution. But more importantly for me, I have grown up in this organization. And this organization had alliance partners. And one of those alliance partners is SANCO. We can mention it because it's not a political organization. And I was one of the youngest people to grow in SANCO, and I ended up being the provincial secretary of SANCO. I think the most painful decision for me is the one of having to leave a civic organization that is supposed to be fighting for people. Because, all the other organizations are not supposed to be existing in South Africa today if we as SANCO at the time continued to be a SANCO that continues to be not political, So my decision to resign, my brother, was a very, very painful decision. I had been an activist for almost all my life. I resigned when I'm 36 years. So that is almost 18 years of my life.
Wow.
In service now, being in the mother body, but in the youth league it would have been more years, So, but then there are a variety of reasons why one would have left, and you would have realized that I had taken a decision that I am not even going to air, and I'm not going to do it today. Because when people were good to you, at least you must just remember those days that there was a point when they were good. But I think the writings are on the wall. Everybody can see what the space of politics has become. Politics has become too contaminated. But I'd also now become a businessman. And there was so much a fine line to continue to exist and conduct business without anything that you do gets to be ascribed to the governing party and all that. And mind you, I have never done, not that I can recall, but I've not been one person who goes for tenders. So I'm not in these things of projects, tenders, or even doing business with government. And I think also one of the factors that maybe I must mention is that, there came a time in South Africa where being a politician now was demonized. And that's why today when you apply for funding anything, they say you are politically exposed. Being a politician was now demonized because the mere assumption that because you serve in a structure of a particular political organization, it means whatever that you do, it is not by your own doing. My brother, I wake up at 4 in the morning. I drop no less than 100 proposals on an annual basis. I work all the time, right? And even to this day, I can tell you there are people who believe that you have a mining company that runs. I'm a director to over 10 companies. You have a mining company and many other things that you do. And there are people who still believe that, hey, this one is a beneficiary of some dealings because he was politically, and that kills society. So amongst other things, I've had to make a painful decision. One, because of the internal unbearable conditions of what the movement that we knew was now becoming, but also the external element in terms of how society really looks at us when we are politicians. And I also wanted to contribute better to society. I'm relating better now. I can call everybody in this town across political racial lines. I can call anybody in the country and work with everybody, So my belonging to the movement had also limited me in terms of contributing better for the betterment of society, So there was a lot of factors that had to go in for me to come to that decision. It was a painful one, but it was a correct decision, although at the time it was not an easy decision.
Of course.
But also it benefited my family quite a lot because, and to anyone else who is a politician, it is good that they are doing service to the community and to all of us, right? And mind you, most of them are doing this thing selflessly. Who gets to suffer? My family suffered the most when I was an activist. I only now, when my daughter is doing grade 8 and 9 now, yes, when she was doing grade 8, yes, last year and this year, I could go to see her playing hockey and all that. I can tell you many politicians across all political parties who we always insult and so forth and so forth, their families get to suffer the most.
Right.
Their families get to be insulted. When they are doing right, we never give them credit. When they are doing wrong, we call them out. But the time they spend, when you see them there being activists and holding the positions, there's a lot that happens in the background, the meetings, the conferences, the squabbles and whatnot and whatnot. Many a times, they rarely spend time with their families. And that's one thing that I think had also, affected me. And the most people who supported my decision was my family, because I can now spend time with them. I can have ample time. And I realize that I can even contribute much better to society without looking at which political party you belong to. If we are a party as a black mic, and then we say, yeah, we work for everybody.
Yeah.
Would other people of a blue mic podcast come to talk to us even when they need help?
Oh yeah, it limits us. Yeah.
It limits us. Not because we say people must not come to us, but by virtue of us carrying a card of a particular political organization.
Automatically, we are the opposition.
Automatically, you are the opposition. So what might happen is that these people have a difficulty of approaching me. But it might also happen that because I belong to this organization, if somebody comes with another T-shirt, I might be skeptical.
Why salute my
I might be a bit skeptical.
Yeah.
I am not saying I'm not going to come back in the political
space. In fact, that was my follow-up question. Do you see yourself coming back?
I had also relocated from the town.
All right.
My family is down in another province. And I had relocated because those who are progressing in society, we need some love. We need to be shown some love. And those who are contributing positively in society needs to be shown some love. Those who are investing in their own communities need a bit of some love, although we might believe that they are bad people, and those who are progressing in business. My brother, I became an enemy of my people. And if I'm saying my people, the town.
Yes.
I'm sure you would have heard when people are singing, when your wife goes to the mall and she goes and buy. I'm going to answer a question. When my wife goes to the mall and to buy, and there's a group of people who are singing, Hilenja Thabo, and you just open a mining operation. At the time, you are employing about 100 people. Is the issue me? The issue was never about me. The issue is about us as black communities, that those that we live with, when their lives changes and become better, we immediately turn them into enemies. And that's why we find people leave the towns. That's why somebody, when their life get better, they leave. My brother, I'd like to have my mansion right in the middle of the township and have my swimming pool, have a swimming pool that will be accessed by everybody. That's what I would love to do. I'd love to build my house in Tabin, where I can have people having access, where I can have the fastest internet, speed that children can have. I would want to be accessible,
This is a hotspot.
I would want to be accessible to my people. I want to walk the streets without security so that the young people in my town can identify. I mean, I'm born and raised here, coming from a 2-room shack, raised by a single parent, and by virtue of trying to leave the town, I almost rob a young person who is sitting a Mandela and I say N12. Before I proceed, there's this young man. Today he went to school. His shoes are torn. The other one, he went to school, is cold, he didn't have a jersey. The other one is wearing a shirt alwashile ngensipi sunlight ageza ngayo. Potentially didn't have anything to eat uyodla esikoleni. Those 3 boys I'm telling you about, and girls, they are going to be better than me. What I'm saying to you is that there's a young Thabo in N12, in Extension 3, who's going to own more mines like me, who's going to be more popular than me, who's going to be more richer than I am, who's also going to impact this community more than I am. So if I leave this town, I might be denying the next generation an opportunity. I might be killing the next Thabo that must rise out of this community. So coming back to your question, and one of the things that we must accept as society, we must accept that there's always going to be somebody that's going to be better than me. You know why I'm comfortable? Why I'm comfortable to fund, and you must remind me before we end, I'll tell you about this fund that I have for anybody in this town who is in business. You must remind and ask me about it.
All right.
So maybe I just missed my point because I went to this fund. But I'm saying you must now accept, there's something you must accept, that there is always going to be somebody that is better than me. And in that way, I would not have had to find myself having to leave the town because you have got a town that is hostile towards you. So all of us must accept that somebody is always going to be better than us, and in that way we would then be able to build. So coming back to your question, I had left the town and I came back during the elections, coming just to vote. But because I was a volunteer, I had set a certain budget, and I said,
a volunteer in the.
I was a volunteer. Remember, all my life, I was a party agent. I was a volunteer of the movement, and I went door to door to tell people to vote, right? And I know also being a volunteer, whether you're a volunteer of the ANC, EFF, DA, AZAPO, AVPP, all these other political parties that you can speak about, whether you're a volunteer of them, but the reality is that a volunteer leaves home without any food, hoping to get food somewhere in the program. Sometimes they do get food, but they go back home without electricity. Yet they were volunteering, telling people to vote against the other party and for the other party. So I decided to come a few days before the elections because I said I want to reach out to the volunteers, because I was a volunteer myself who wore an all-star.
You know the struggle, yeah.
I know the struggle of them, and it means a lot. So, but I took a decision, I set a budget, and I said, I'm going to go to all of them, not one political party. I obviously started at the constituency office because that's where I began, and I worked as a volunteer. And I made sure that they are fine and everybody else has eaten, the volunteers and all that. Immediately when I left, I went to the first voting station. My brother, what I found there, a person who was sitting with us in the ANC is now sitting across on the other table. A person who was sitting in the EFF the other year is sitting on the other, But these people, all of them, remain unemployed. All of them are affected by the shortage of water. All of them are affected by the lack of employment opportunities and all that. And yet there's so much intolerance amongst themselves. And when I get to the station, I call all of them. I said, comrades, I used to be an activist. I'm no longer anywhere. But I'm reaching out to all of you because I think all of you are a family. And I will assist all of you. And I would then assist, and I would then say to them, food is provided, but if others decide to buy whatever that they buy, if there's no electricity out of this 200 rand, tell them that I ask of 20 rand out of this. And my brother, I reached out to all the stations. When I could not get to all of them, then I had Sipo who was also assisting me to get. Yeah. Now, when I left here, I said, I'm not going to come back into politics. And immediately thereafter, when I got here, everybody came here. I think I had over 200 people. And everybody said, hey, we think you must come back. Remember, I just came to vote. Said, hey, we think you must come back. Things were better when you were around.
These are people from the ANC.
These are people from the ANC, from the EFF, from pastors and everybody else. And most of the guys then that were radical. And most of them used to like to cut corners. I always tell people, this thing of saying you close a business and get a business, Tatetaflane is not there. And we can talk about it. I'll tell you, it's very much unsustainable and it's not there. most of these guys who were the two radicals, when you told them about the progress, they came and said, Chief, we think you said there should be a process, we should engage on things. We think we are now have realized we need to work together in this town. A lot has happened in this town. We think you are one person who can come. And I said, hey, I can't come back. This thing, my family, I had to consult the family. And the family said, you know what? My wife still doesn't accept. And, I said, look, let me try. And I then reached out to the leadership. But the sad part, and I'm telling you about the future, I have no intentions of returning actively into politics and being voted into office. I have no intentions. But I have every intention of participating actively and supporting communities, not only the community of Delmas, communities in terms of participating in their government and being part of taking decisions.
Yeah, I know, it's understandable.
Local brands.
Just try and open up for a camera spawn.
Yeah,
we are used to Maisha and the I Salute alone, but in Isbona Z two lap.
Yes.
Is it a collab?
Yeah, it's a collaboration.
Wow.
So when we were in China, I traveled with I Salute, doctor who owns the brand, and you would see there would seemingly a competition. And that's what society always does when there's two brands. There was no fight amongst the gents, but society has sort of almost built up that thing. So it's known what I Salute. And I had said to, we are part of the things we're going to do in terms of bringing the economic development of the town. Right. We want manufacturing to happen here. That's why we went to China with our small bags and we came back with small bags. So this is a collaboration that happened as that result. And we engaged and we said, when we come back, but I didn't tell doctor when we were there. I said, you know what, how are you with Step? He said, no, I'm good. Step used to be my friend. I said, you guys, it will be good that we work together. It would be nice that you have a I Salute safety shoe. You have, you see, there's an I Salute safety shoe. It's an I Salute safety shoe. Eh?
Wow.
Yeah, it's an I Salute safety shoe, right? And it's going to be manufactured here. By the way, when you are sitting here, just across, it will be manufactured here, right? So it would be good that we don't have to build a Maisha factory and an I Salute factory. We just build up one factory where the two different brands, and not only the two different brands, but also other local brands. You've got Godfest and everybody else. If Black Mike has got their own and any other. But in that way, you will then reduce the costs of production and then obviously increase profitability, but also offer these services cheaper to our people.
Without
This was a collaboration that came out of the Delmas first meeting that we had, and we called Dr. and I Salute. And we actually bought 500 of these T-shirts. Wow. We committed to buy 500 of them. Wow. We have started buying a sizable number of them, and they are already producing them. So we must support I Salute. We must support Maisha standalone as a brand and standalone as I Salute. But there are many other brands, local brands as well. And that's what we are about. I would like to wear a t-shirt that says I Salute, Maisha, Godfest. What is the other local brand? Agukopet, Vugataki, all those local brands, and we must try and have it, so that we promote. So you can understand the cost of a machita going to buy, if they go and buy material in Joburg for now, they don't have to use different transport going down there. They would all say, okay, you've got orders. We want 100 T-shirts, we want 1,000. Let's now go and buy. Oh, because Mangamani, you've got a transport. That's what we are trying to do. So this T-shirt does not only symbolize a collaboration between Maisha and I Salute, but it symbolizes a collaboration of the people and the greatness of what is to become. With this collaboration, we're still going to reach out to the guys who are doing promotions and events in the township. Somebody who puts up an event, he organizes an event, he does a Sunday market, he spends tens of thousands there. Somebody spitefully the following day organizes a Thabo Motau event. They call it competition. You must remind me, and you must come back with the podcast so that I want to sit down with them. And Dennis, you must just take notes.
Yeah.
I said all the guys who are organizing events, there is ample opportunity for all of them to benefit. But that is not only in t-shirts, that is not only in events, that is not only in toilet paper manufacturing, it is in all that we do, where we then create a healthy competition, collaboration, reduce the cost. So there's much more benefit out of collaboration, in my view, than unhealthy competition.
Wow. You've already touched on my next point because I was going into the Delmas first. And then one thing that I noticed and I loved about the program, about the movement, right? Buying local, buying at home, manufacturing at home, right? And then you are touching in about a healthy competition and all of that. So like what is it ends with ucabanga ukuthi mangiqala ngibheka wena wenza leso skipper nami ngenza iskipper ngikubheke as a competitor?
So I think, my brother, it's not a clear, I can't have a clear answer and say you know what makes you think I'm a competitor. But sometimes maybe it also happens by, why do we form these businesses? Do we form these businesses because we are providing that which is not available in the market or closing a gap? Or do we form these businesses as a way out of our difficult situations? So as I see you selling a different or similar product, I see you taking a customer, so I look at it in monetary value. I see you taking a plate out of my table. But I like to take it further. It is not even sometimes about the food itself or affordability. It is maybe also about, I see you taking my Louis Vuitton, or maybe not mentioning name, but my high-end branded sneaker away from me. Because it's also about, why did you have this business? You know, I always say this, going back to, we'll come back to answer just now. I always say this, what is business? Business, in my view, you create something, you add value. It is a value add. Business is not about who do you know who are sitting in procurement offices. Let me tell you, if you provide something that I don't need, you know what you have to do? You have to market it. You have to spend on marketing. You have to convince me to buy it. But if you give me something that I need no convincing. I would definitely buy it because it is something that I need. You don't need to spend money on marketing. You don't need to hate on others because they are providing a sort of a similar service. So what has happened, I think I've seen in South Africa, and not only in Delmas, is that when somebody starts a business, whether it's trucking, and you would see a lot of people then going into that business, you know. And I'm not saying is that it's the case with the two brands. I mean, people have come with their ideas and so forth and so forth. So to your answer in terms of what causes that, it is precisely because, in my view, it is attached to the monetary value issue. But also then us as a society, we like to pity business against each other. When I'm iSalute's friend and I'm Tsepo's friend, I've always had engagements with them. There are t-shirts that they made that I never wore. And they would tell you individually. There's a iSalute t-shirt that I've never worn in my life. There's a Maisha t-shirt that I've never worn in my life, because I've always challenged them on quality, and I've always challenged them on being different. And I'm wearing this one because it is different. I've worn a Maisha t-shirt, I think some 2 years ago, which had a flame that was made. Because also, when you make a product, do you make a product that you like or that is liked by people? I don't like, for instance, these big writings. You know, the next one I will wear, it will probably a nice small. I have an iSalute t-shirt that has got only a makinopo that are iSalute. And I like things like that, you know, because I'm trying to and I'm trying to move away from the issue of brands and whatnot. But with the local ones, these ones I easily wear. So yes, so the competition, we can have healthy competition. But also us as a society, we must help those who are in business without pitting, people against each other.
And buy local.
Buy local, yeah, buy local. There's so many brands that are here, but also locally, let's produce quality.
Yes, sir.
Because the problem I have, I want to buy this. This is one of my entities, by the way.
All right.
I'm sure you would have seen Thabo Motau. It's one of my also many other companies, and we'll tell you one day what it does. But I would have liked to buy this locally here. Who makes it here locally? Who produces the same quality? Is it really business to go and buy a finished slumber and brand it and sell it to me? Can we still call it business in 2024? I beg to differ.
And that's what's happening.
I beg to differ. That's why I salute and Maisha and many other local people are going to grow out of going to buy from bulk manufacturers. If you go to I salute workshop and you go to studio and you go to Maisha now, you will see they are now beginning to have equipment, right? And we're going to build a bigger facility where these fellows can then be able to produce. My brother, it is better if this thing is produced here by a Spank or by somebody and a Maisha buys it and brands Maisha. It will create employment. Just in passing, let me tell you what happens. When somebody buys 1,000 pieces in any country and imports them into the country, and now we say, hey, we celebrate him, he's got his brand. You know what happens? This person buys this thing for 500 rand. He brings it here. It costs him another 700 and 250, shipping and all that. He puts a profit of 250. There's markups, there's other things, costs and whatnot. He ends up with a profit of 150 rand. A bulk of the money that went into this thing that we are wearing, that we are buying, which was brought into this country, a bulk of that money creates employment in that particular country. If it's Indonesia, if it's China, that's why our conversation when we go there with the Chinese would be a different conversation. So if people, I'm not anti people who go and buy brand things and sell, but I'm anti people doing that for the next 5 years. Then we can't be business activists forever. I normally say to the guys who, there was this, people call it a revolution.
All right.
Yeah, there was a revolution. Now, a revolution where it was then said people can now begin to benefit, get opportunities. You can't be a business person who got an opportunity out of a toy, and then you got trucks out of a toy mzabalazo. Then even to this day, you are still a person who's doing that one particular business, but you still want to get business through toy, and you have not grown out of that business. Out of being a business activist, you must grow now, become an entrepreneur. So business activists are the ones who buy brand things, and we call them entrepreneurs. Those ones are business activists. All right. They are trying, they are developing, right? You can't do that for the next 10 years. When we celebrate the next 10 years of Maisha, God First, I Salute, and any other, Vugatak and all that, we must celebrate them and say they are manufacturing here at home, because they'll be creating employment here. They'll be creating bursaries here at home. They'll be using their CSI to develop the roads here. So a t-shirt that you are wearing, my brother, that does not come from this country, has got so much impact. And the message is very loaded in that t-shirt. That t-shirt has created a bursary where it comes from. An old woman sells food on the streets to the people who are going to that factory, who are making that, right? The guy who drives a truck is so that t-shirt creates a lot of employment opportunities out there. The only way we are going to make South Africa better, it is when we begin to say the mics that we are going to buy for Black Mic, there must be the last mics that we buy that are not manufactured in the country and not in Delmas. But somebody must tell me why, now that we are going to be buying computers, you don't have a computer that is manufactured in South Africa. I bet somebody must contest me. They will tell me about this one that is assembled here. Something gets assembled here. But let's even talk about assembling. We don't have a computer that is here. Me and you, are sitting here as we are sitting here with almost everything else. Maybe my art that I manufactured here, it's everything else that I get to be making here. But most of what we are having,
It is
the
imported.
phones that we are having and everything else, to the extent that we even sometimes import furniture and all that. And we cry about employment and so forth and so forth. So the drive, it's there around this. I know I might have overstretched.
You have.
Yeah.
You mentioned that you are in the board of over 70 companies, right?
Yes.
But the one that is outstanding, you mentioned that you are a director in a mining company.
Yes.
Let's dive into that. So what made you want to
Well,
move
they are
into
not
the mining
70. I
sector?
think the number is a bit higher.
All right, 70 plus. Let's say that.
Yeah, no,
70
no.
plus.
Look, the number is a bit higher. So
Okay.
I'm a director in about 10.
All right.
But I oversee, probably number 7, that's what I probably oversee. And overseeing is the ones I meant to. Remember, every year I've got about 50. But the next year I've got exciting news. I'm gonna be
Something
doing
big is coming,
yeah,
right?
I'm gonna have a sizable number. So
Right.
every year I almost do about 50 mentees. So yes, I oversee over probably 70 or so, over 100 entities. But mine, obviously, I'm sitting in directorship in over about 10 of them.
Wow.
Yeah.
Right.
Let's,
So I'm coming into the mining sector.
yeah.
What made you go into that, right? Was it influenced by maybe, okay, in Collery, Delmas, I see a lot of mines and all of that. So is the idea coming from that, or you saw as a need, a space?
So the mining issue, I tell you, I had always been a person, I thought I was going to work. I wanted to be employed, have security and just, have a salary.
Yeah.
And I think when I was not employed in somewhere around 2014, I had come back in the location and I began to participate in these, social activism programs. And I began to interact with, and now understanding what mines are supposed to do for the community. I saw there was a lot that was not being done. Mines were not rehabilitating, SLPs were not being done and so forth. And I started engaging directly with the mining companies.
All right.
But when I started engaging directly, I realized that the owners of these mines, and I used to think they are white, and I realized that they are black people. But yeah. Now, the activist in me, mind you, when I was engaging, I never had any business. I was just accompanying business people. And one fateful day, I met a lady called Maina Muabi, and I met Shemi. And they owned a mine. And that guy inspired me because he was very young, probably by age now. And they own Dalamo Resources, one of the successful black, mining companies. And I said to him in the later time, you remember when you get in the meeting, you become radical.
Yeah, yeah.
And Shemi said, Maina, that guy, I think there's a potential in him. And he would then ask me, I see you are good for the community, but what is your plan? And I said, I don't want anything. Somebody would have said, I want trucks, give me money.
yeah.
And I said, I would want to participate in the mining space. I would want to learn. And he said, look, here I am. I come from where I am, and you can begin to do these things on your own. You'd approach the TMRE and so forth and so forth. And I began from there. Then I looked around. Then there was a man called Andre at Tabachu.
All right.
Because I identified an opportunity. My first application was a silica mining project, which I'm going to start drilling now. And then Andre was also influential there in terms of, because I saw, when I was standing at Tabachu, I saw there was a shining rock there. And hey, that thing, man, is a silica, that thing. and then sort of Andre allowed me to then apply, because it was not their property, it was Exaro. And also thanks to Exaro, because I went to Exaro. I wrote to them before I could apply, by the way.
Wow.
I said, Exaro, I saw something in your property, can I mine? And they said, no, but you must follow. I went to present, they said, follow process. So I think the local mines operating in the area inspired me, my brother. And from day one, when I had my first name appearing on a newspaper, I said, this thing is doable. And from that day, that was Highveld Chronicles, right? That was Highveld Chronicles, right? So, and then I made it a point, crazily, my brother, I made it a point that almost every second week I was applying for a new project.
Wow.
But what I did, because now I realized that, okay, I don't have any background of geology and whatever, and I don't have all the money. Now I had to sacrifice, and that's an important part. So I called all the other local business people, and I said to them, gents, owning a mine is possible. I will one day own a mine. I've now begun. let's come together. Some of you are in tracking and got money. To apply for a mine, you only need 2,500 just to apply for the prospecting right or a mining permit. Some heeded the call. Some chose not to heed it.
Repeat that again.
I'm saying,
how much do you need
to apply for a mine today? I'm saying any mine that you see that is standing in the country, and thanks to the movement, any mine that is standing today, the application fee from the Department of Mineral Resources, it's a 2,500 rand. We can open a computer now and apply. And let me tell you what is it. And people, I want to demystify what people think is you need a lot of money to have a mine standing to the level where we are. You need probably a good 200 million, to even before you see your first code. But I'm saying to apply. So the good thing is that, and maybe one day we must have a podcast where we deal about mining and how people can go and participate there. Yes. Because you see where we are sitting is my farm, or we are sitting in your farm. I can put an application there in the farm without even having come to speak to you. That's how the system is. But it will say then you can consult later on. So the first process of putting an application on your name, reserving the place. So if you were to know, for instance, that in the olden days, your parents used to get coal somewhere, and maybe nobody has applied there, you can put 2,500 and apply, and come to me and say, Thabo, I've tried to apply there, but I don't have money for the consultant. The consultant will say, okay, pay me 100,000 for a prospecting right. How many people eat 100,000 rand? Some of them wear it. Well, I don't go in that diamond walk that is popular. Many people go there, but people go there for 3 items and they finish their money, right? And then they come and want to get opportunities in your mine, when in fact themselves they have won many mines in the process. They've won many mines and they've paid many bills. Many mines they've swiped them in these affluent restaurants. So 2,500 rand. Then you apply. When you have applied, you come to me and say, Thabo, I can't pay for a consultant. I then say, well, what is it? 100. Okay. Me and a couple of friends, I can say, let's do it. Now, okay, the drilling must happen. Drilling will cost us, 500. Okay, let's approach somebody with a drill. And we think we might have a potential of coal. Because now we've gone to geosciences and we have now you see, you've spent 2,500. You come to Thabo and then you look at other guys with drilling. Thabo says, no, I've got a drill. I've got my own drill. We don't drill. We drill the first one. We don't find anything. You don't despair, my brother. You have now I've applied for over 100. I've got over 150 years of life of mining with the different mining projects. And I never knew. I was never a miner. But I began understanding that you can apply with 2.5. And once you have applied, you can approach people who are in the space and say, I've applied here. Some of them, you'll find that there's nothing. Now, we drill one, we don't find anything. We then drill the other one. We now find it as something. One mining project, my brother, it's enough. One project of 10 million tons, it's enough to take care of your 4th generation.
Wow.
Not in the sweet coals of Malathi. I'm saying in this coal of Delmas. One project, it's enough. Now, but it's also enough to impact positively the community. And maybe you must ask us about our SLP, some of those things, because yesterday we just came from the municipality.
Wow.
And you would see we're pioneering and advocating to build a fire station for the municipality. We are just 2 years into operation. You can understand the size of that thing. But we said the first building blocks, we're going to put them. And there's a host of other things that are there. So I'm saying it is doable, this mining thing. And I went into it by being inspired by other black people. And I sacrificed in the process. At the time when I began applying for mines, I did not have 20,000 rand as a take home of my money. And I would sacrifice and use the consultant who paid 2.5 and then I paid 6.5 for him to do the other things. But I sacrificed from that money. When I was being helped by friends, earning about now 30,000 rand a month, I had an arrangement with a consultant to pay him 7,000 rand every month for the mining rights, for the mining prospecting rights that were there, So there was a point in time when I was making way lesser than anybody. So I'm saying it's doable because I had to sacrifice. I had to drive an airconless bike. In fact, I didn't have a car at some point. I was using Tony's bike. And so those are all the sacrifices that are there. When you sacrifice, people sometimes miss the point. Don't sacrifice and then don't do anything.
All right.
If I sacrifice the time now and not be with my my family, if I go to whatever in a place like whatever the case, I'm sacrificing the time of my family. I am not with them, but I'm going there, right? Now, if you sacrifice buying yourself fleshy things, you sacrifice going with your pools and whatnot, you have got to direct the little that you are sacrificing somewhere. But people sometimes say, but I don't do these things, I don't wear expensive and whatnot. Yet you sacrifice, but you are sacrificing and then doing what? The money that I'm stopping smoking, the money that I was using to smoke, don't just stop smoking and don't have a designated account where you put the money that you were smoking. You know, put thing with it. So my sacrifices and the sacrifices of my partners and many others has been able to build up what you see here, which is the first of many. And I think there's other ones that are starting up here as well.
Wow. I think we should have a proper podcast with other leaders in the sector and then get much information, because 2K, who knew?
Yeah.
2,000.
Yeah. 2.5.
2.5. Wow. Right. On a lighter note, I did mention that you also love biking, right?
Yeah.
So let's just get into that. So going into biking, right? Would you say you have, I don't know, like a daredevil spirit, or trying to, I don't know, have right?
I'm an
adrenaline junkie, right?
Yeah.
Is it that, or you've always loved bikes?
So